Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel or podcast. I use them interchangeably. Money Talk. Well, I am your host, Yetunde. Now, this is a podcast for people who work, you earn income, you have debt, you want to be debt free, you have a home based business, you struggle with personal finance and budgeting. This is the place for you. I keep it simple and I throw away the financial jargons. Who needs them? Not us. Now, if that sounds good to you, I want you to subscribe, like, share, and comment below. All right? Now, your girl had a nice Thanksgiving break, and I'm hoping you did too. It was just a wonderful time with family. We celebrated, came together as a family. I went to my sister's place, and guys, I did not cook one bit. I'm telling you, when I say I did not cook, I did not lift a finger. I mean, she did everything. So kudos to you, sis. Now, this video is a pre-recorded show that I did with a friend of mine, Susan, over at Unraveling Autism. That's another podcast that I am a host of. I wanted to share this video with you so that it can help us as a community to help other tribes out there. My friend Susan is a single parent, a mother of 4, and one of her child is autistic. And when Susan approached me one day and we just got to talking about finances, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I did not know this about the autism community. And she was able to share her story with me. And that's when I got to know that when a child is diagnosed with autism, about a high percentage of families lose the breadwinner. And as you know, once the breadwinner is gone, the rest of the family suffers. So I just wanted to share this with you because maybe you know someone who is in this category. Now, their child may not have autism. It may be some type of disability, but I just wanted to share this with you because there were some kind of resources that we also shared on this podcast that I would like to share with you, my tribe. And so, so I just want you to take a listen, take a watch, and share at the end of the video. Okay?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unraveling Autism. This is a podcast for moms of autism, friends and family of autism, those who just want to learn, and everyone in between. Fasten your seatbelts, for this is the unfiltered version. Expect the unexpected.
Like trying to sell my house to pay for therapies.
Wild Adventures Productions presents Unraveling Autism.
Whoa. All right. Well, tell me about that. That's
Yeah,
deep.
yeah, it really is, and I just want to preface by saying after 25 years of journeying with, this diagnosis, I have calmed down. And I don't have that franticness
Mm.
like I did in the beginning. So,
Okay.
it really has a lot to do with, you get this diagnosis, you have no idea what it is. No one around you knows what it is.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out life. It's already tough enough, as you know, like when you have a baby. I already had a 2-year-old, I have a baby, and then, life kind of goes on, and it's tough being a new mom,
Mhm.
and then juggling, multiple kids and all of this stuff. And then on top of it, you get this diagnosis.
Yeah.
And you see your child like declining every day.
Mm.
You already have a child, so like, oh, naturally, even though it's hard and you don't have enough sleep and you all of these things,
Mm.
um, but you get this diagnosis and you start to match up like, oh my gosh, this is why it's been extra hard. There's been like continuous crying on Parker's part, and like this not listening behaviors everywhere we go, feeling isolated, can't go anywhere, all of these things. And on top of it, you don't know what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out from, word of mouth that there are therapies that he could do. And you're not thinking I'm doing therapies to just maintain. You're thinking I'm doing therapies for like a cure.
Mm. Yeah.
And you hear like words from the distance that says there's like medication that they came up with, and I forget now what it was even called, but like in Dallas they were saying that there was this medication that they came up with that this boy who was diagnosed with autism inadvertently got hospitalized, and he had dehydration, and they gave him this medication to stop the problem with like the vascular, like gastrointestinal issues.
Mm-hmm. The
And then
GERD.
yeah, they didn't even know that this medication would help, but he went into the hospital having all of these symptoms of autism, but he came out of the hospital after getting these medication um, for to control his dehydration issues, and he could talk. He
Wow.
had eye focus,
Hmm.
and he had all of these things. So when I heard that,
Mhm.
of course, came with it, they said this medication that they were giving him um, intravenously was off the market. Like the pharmaceutical company had stopped even producing it.
Hmm.
And so what that meant was to reproduce it, it would cost like probably millions of dollars, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
every person who wants to get a little bit of that,
Mhm.
it would cost like crazy amount. And I forgot even now what the figure was, but all I could think about is, oh my gosh, I have to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So there's this dramaticness. You
Mhm.
don't mean to do that, but it
Yeah.
comes with the diagnosis and wanting so desperately to find a cure for your son.
Yeah.
And then because there weren't a lot of, and even today, I mean, I want to say because there weren't a lot of therapies and stuff, we were paying a lot of money, but they were like $160 or $140 for behavioralists
Mhm.
for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like that's exorbitant amount of money.
That's an exorbitant. Yeah, that's a lot. Now, before you continue, I know you talked about, funny you said that there was this place in Dallas that
Hmm.
had started this drug, and of course had tested it on this young boy.
Yeah.
And it's funny you said that because in my research, um, one of the things that they talk about how autism affects a family financially was relocation costs. So did you think to yourself, and the reason is because some families, of course, well, I should say some states have more resources than others. So you see families flocking to,
Yeah.
well, they have the money, first of all. if that you see them relocating to these places so that they can get those resources. So did you ever think to yourself when you found out, like, oh, this place in Dallas developing this new drug, I'm just going to relocate?
Man, you hit on a jackpot of a question, because in this flurry of trying to look for, this cure.
Yeah.
And at the time I wouldn't have even told you that I was looking for the cure. I was just looking for a solution of some
Solution.
kind.
Mm-hmm.
But Dallas should have been the place that we would have gone right away to, but it wasn't. It didn't end up being Dallas. But to your point and what you had researched, it's so accurate, because I found out that that really wasn't viable. That medication was maybe a one-off. Like, it worked for him, but it wasn't a proven thing, and all of this stuff. And then an opportunity opened up for me to look at Colorado, and there was this therapy. They said that they've seen these like huge. So we had to make a decision. Like, I had to make a decision for my kids. Like, do I go after the golden goose in Dallas, or do I go after, these therapies that we've seen, like, that have really helped them on a practical basis every day, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, like, the first place we did was, we were in Houston, and I moved us to Colorado Springs, and the therapy was actually in Denver, but that was just like an hour away.
Okay.
And I had to go to Colorado Springs because I had a better opportunity, for jobs and finances there. So that made sense to go there. And then we did therapy in Denver, in this music therapy that, so I was just grabbing. I say we, but I was the one making the decisions, and I was just grabbing at straws, right?
Yeah.
So from Colorado, we moved to Chicago, because I heard the schools were great in Chicago. And so I was just grasping, right? So a year in Colorado Springs, moved to Chicago, and then get him into the public school system. It really ended up being such a good program. But then you would think that in Chicago, it was a suburb of Chicago called Highland Park. You would think that they would have like this amazing program, but it wasn't. It was kind of a one-off program. It just so happened, what I figured out was, the program is as good as the teacher, and they had great teachers. And so he outgrew that, that program.
Okay.
And then I ended up going from there, of all places, to Florida, because Dan Marino has a son who was diagnosed with autism. And because he has a deep pocket, there was a lot going on. And the school system in Florida, had the funding, and they had this program called the cluster program. And when I came to see it, it was awesome. It was like 6 kids. The teachers were trained. They were using everyday programs, everyday life skills programs, to help them to be able to have better focus. So I took more of the practical route than reaching for the brass ring in Dallas, and I think, in hindsight, out of those 2 options, I'm glad that I didn't go to Dallas. But truth be known, as little of help as we had in Houston at the time, if I would have stopped, dropped, and prayed, if I would have stayed in that place and like cleared my mind, really thought about what it was that I'm dealing with, having already had a support system of friends, because I'd lived there for a decade, and having had job opportunities, having had all of that, it would have made more sense for me to stay there. But divorce is a big thing in our community because, you know, finance is a number one reason for anyone to get divorced.
Yeah.
It creates havoc in families' lives,
Yeah.
and it causes couples to, you know, to go against each other. And so for any typical family, finance is number one reason for divorce. But in our community, with the stress level,
Mm-hmm.
with all of a sudden hitting this crisis and having to put out this outlay of monies,
Yeah.
you know, because it's about your child. So what wouldn't you give?
Yeah.
And so there's a conflict between two parents, you know, and it separates, you know, relationships,
Yeah.
you know. So finance is a big component, and I'm really thrilled because when the Lord spoke to you about, you know, doing something with telling the story,
Yeah.
you know, telling our story, and we didn't know what it was going to look like, but you were already, I mean, you've been in the financial world. That's what you do for a career. That's what you've been teaching to others.
Mm-hmm.
And it just dawned on me, like, in our community, we suffer
Mm-hmm.
from not understanding finances because, you know, we're emotionally driven,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it causes us to have this financial issue to go out of, like, get out of hand. And it causes so much stress and not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of value in stop, drop, and pray, clear our mind, think
Yeah.
about what is in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
what are we dealing with.
Yeah.
And as much as it sounds crazy,
Mm-hmm.
it's important more than ever to put together a budget and understand, like, where we're headed, because if we don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
life is going to look like our life, my life, what
Yeah.
I had put my family through,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just going from here to there, spending every dime I had, moving us from place to place.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted you to today talk about exactly what you were talking about, like the moves that came with it, the, you
Yeah.
know, the craziness that happens financially. So
Yeah.
share with us.
Yeah, sure. So, like I mentioned earlier in my research, and I have my notes by my side so I don't forget. One of the things that they taught, that I learned, and it was not until you mentioned it, that families who have a child with autism are affected. They, like you said, because of um, the diagnosis, and they can't deal with it. They end up in divorce. And I did not see that until you mentioned it. I just thought it was for a typical
Yeah,
family, that, because of finances, we have a rate of divorce. But in the United States, they mentioned that there are many school-based special needs programs. There are healthcare professionals and social work service providers that assist families of autistic children. Um, but um, but in many areas of the country, they do not have adequate resources, right, to cater to autistic people's needs. So
yeah,
because of this, Americans are just compelled to just relocate, to different states just to maximize their children's access to these programs, to these
yeah,
resources. And of course, that hits the pocketbook,
yeah.
even harder because, like you said, and where were you? You were in Houston,
We were in Houston,
Houston.
Texas. We
Okay.
went to
And then you
Colorado,
went to Colorado,
from there to Chicago,
Chicago,
and then to
and then
Florida.
to Florida. Look at
And
that.
all because we were looking for a better program.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I also want to interject something.
Mhm.
Um, so when you have a divorce, now what happens is predominantly children end up with their moms. So now I'm a single mom having to deal with everyday life on my own, don't have the income, you know, and even the government hasn't allowed really for additional help, like with child support. Like, we're not going to talk about today because that's getting into a whole different segment, but I just want you to have that in the back of your mind, because a lot of times we have single moms that are taking care of a family. So in my immediate family, as you know, I have 2 kids diagnosed with autism and 2 typical kids.
Yes.
So, and I'm a single mom who stays home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one right there. That's a big one right there. And then on top of that, relocating, I mean, I just don't even want to think about, because I know how much it cost me
Yes.
to move. I moved from Maryland to Florida and then back to Maryland. So I know how much it costs. You know, you have to think about the laborers, the trucks. I mean, it's a lot. And then of course the time it takes, you know, because while you're dealing with the children as well, you know, you also have to deal with, okay, what do we take with us? What do we throw away? What, you know, all these things. Another thing that I found was the bills. The bills, the doctor visits. I mean, my God, the prescription medication, the therapy session. I know you mentioned that, you know, that could stack up. That could stack up for any family, you know. And then to talk about even people on the autism spectrum, because you never know, right? You never know where they are on the autism. So one may need more therapy session, one may need more medication, one may need more doctor visits and all of that. And then there was this study actually in 2014, if my notes, in the journal Pediatrics, families of autistic children can expect over $3,000 USD in additional household medical costs per child. And then in addition to those costs, caseworkers, therapists, and other resources can add up to an additional 14,000 or more. Now, this is a 2014 study. So I know.
Inflation.
With inflation, it's quadrupled now, you know. And they also mentioned that over a lifetime, the financial impact of autism on a family is substantial, which we know. And then it also mentioned that the Journal of American Medicine determined that the lifetime costs for caring for a child with autism add up to 1.4 million USD per person. This is staggering to me. I was like,
and that's just to maintain.
Just to maintain.
We're not talking about going to college.
Yeah.
We're not talking about any of those things. Like, we're talking about just to maintain life.
Yeah.
And back in my days, insurance covered nothing, because people didn't recognize the diagnosis. They didn't understand what it was. The government didn't understand. The insurance companies weren't on board with it. That is a now thing, but it wasn't. That's why people migrated to all this. Like, you know, by coming to Florida and having the cluster program and seeing that they were within the school program, they were providing like speech therapy and, you know, group therapy and just a lot of different kind of things. It's still not enough, because you need to have supplemental. We're talking about within the school system, as best as they can do it, they've done it, but it takes a lot of money. And so people fall through the cracks all the time.
Yeah. Wow. That is just staggering for me. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then another thing, which I kind of felt, well, phew, this is the reason why, the cost of limited time.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it earlier, but you know, if time is money, then the loss of time is probably the most expensive
Yeah.
thing that a family, must pay for, you know. So that means what? Less hours at work, that means they can't do overtime. If they're hourly employee, they cannot do overtime because why? They have an autistic child at home that needs to be cared for. And then on some families, like yourself, they just stop altogether and just focus on the child. So if you're a two household income family and one stops working,
Yeah.
that's it. There's a constraint in the family,
Yeah.
And like you said, at the end of the day, this falls on the mom.
Yeah.
We all know it. It falls on the mom. There are some dads out there, but majority of the time, it falls on the mother. you know. And then what does she do, at this stage, you know? So those are the kind of things that I found out, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. Um, Apart from that, the higher divorce rates, there were also studies about talking about
Yeah.
lower family income. And what was said was so while families are having to pay more for care and services for their child with autism, they also bring in less income. Now, a study published in 2012, and as you can see, all these studies are back, kind of, I mean, we're in 2022, but most of these studies are kind of, I guess it's okay, but to me, I think they need an update. But they
Yeah.
said a study published in 2012 in the pediatrics showed that families with a child with autism had a 20%, 27% reduction of family income. And these families earn almost $18,000 less than families that did not have a child with autism, you know.
Yeah. So to make that real,
Mm-hmm.
so when I moved from Chicago to Florida, I was in sales and national sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so my base salary, I don't usually, in my personal life, I'm very guarded and I
Yeah.
don't usually talk about numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
I really think I need to drive it home because you're looking at the statistics
Yeah.
and to show that those numbers are real. Because
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago, my salary was $110,000.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was just my salary. That's not my commission. That was my salary.
Mm-hmm.
Then I choose to come to Florida for this better program.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a hit in my salary and I took a job, the same type of a job, for $65,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even there was such a difference in my income. However,
Mm-hmm.
if I was paying out of pocket for my son's therapies,
Mm-hmm.
I would have still paid so much more that staying in Chicago didn't make him like grow and and learn new ways of doing things and increase his growth.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, I would have had to pay out of pocket so much. So when I looked at the incremental difference, it still made sense for us to move to Florida.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So every way possible, there was just an increase and a decrease. So your income goes down,
Yeah.
but your operating cost goes
That's-
up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're suffering from because let's face it, when I was working, I
Mm-hmm.
was traveling. They don't pay you
Uh,
that kind of money to sit and just do phone work,
I
you know? So I'm traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and then I take this other job and I'm still traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm taking less money.
Mm-hmm.
And my care, yeah, kids are, my son is getting better care at school.
Mm-hmm.
However, they don't keep your child 24 hours a day. You
That's,
have to pick them up.
that's true.
And if a child at the time, like, to get a good babysitter, not like a child babysitter, but a good babysitter,
Yeah.
let's say that, at the time it was like $5 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I was paying $10 an hour for a specialist to come in to take care of Parker. And it was usually the teachers or the aides that work at a school that already knew him.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm paying $10 to $12 an hour at the time,
Mm-hmm.
when he was, we're talking about, 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting paid less.
Yeah.
So I'm always playing catch up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to this day, I'm always playing catch up, like, because Parker's older now and he doesn't need that kind of care, but he's going to a program,
Mm-hmm.
day program, like, at a time when he should be working
Yeah.
and contributing to his own life. There's a whole factor, like, in your assessment, your dollars that you just put out, like, what was it? How much?
1.4 million.
Okay, so that's 1.4 million. But if you add in the lack of money I'm making and the lack of money that Parker will make throughout his diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
so you look at that incremental cost of him not contributing to society,
Yeah.
but taking from society
Mm-hmm.
and not giving back,
Mm-hmm.
that 1 point whatever million dollars it's chump change compared to what we're not contributing. I am more than capable of contributing to society.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you guys again for watching this video. And I hope and pray that you enjoyed watching and listening as much as I loved recording it with my friend Susan. Well, again, like I said, this is going to be a number of series. I don't know, 3 or 4 series. I have no idea. But what I want you to do is, as you watch and as you take a listen, I hope that you know or remember someone that you can share this with. I just want us to be a community whereby we seek knowledge and we also share information. All right? So we can all help each other out. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you for watching. Till next time, peace and love.